In today's video, I want to talk to you guys about how to get lots of lovely colors and gradients into the backgrounds of your macro photographs. Stick around and I'll explain more in just a sec. Hi guys, I'm Ben from Adaptalux and welcome back to another macro photography tutorial where today we're talking about backgrounds and particularly our background gradient cards, which we've just released a brand new set of. So we now have the series 2 of our background gradient cards. Now these are really handy for getting all of these lovely colors that you can see here into the background of your macro photographs, and I want to talk today about the best way to use them. Now there's been a few changes to our background cards which I'm sure you will have already noticed if you're keen-eyed and have the series 1, but let's take a closer look at what's new with series 2. So first things first, what are background gradient cards? Well, they're quite simply cards that act as backgrounds for your macro photography. So inside this nice little folder, you'll find a series of cards with different colored gradients on them, and now these are really handy for placing behind your subjects. So let's take this card for example, and maybe a pine cone. You can place that color behind your subject, and that's just a really quick demonstration of how to get some nice interesting colors behind your images. We'll take a closer look at how to do that properly in just a moment, but let's take a look at what's changed between series 1 and series 2. So those of you that have series 1, you'll recognize some of these colors. These are my beat up ones that have been used for years. We've got everything from ferrofluid to washing up liquid, all sorts on these cards. And you'll notice that the new cards have completely different designs. So we've got a whole new set of colors, patterns, gradients on these cards, which will be really helpful for getting new and interesting colors into your images. They're both double-sided, so we've still got 6 cards with 12 designs on them. But the first thing that you'll probably notice is that we've got a different material. So if you take a look at these series 1 cards, there is a little bit of a shine to them, which, although not detrimental to most photographs, was a little bit annoying at times. So we've changed the material so that there's absolutely no shine, no hot spots on these cards whatsoever. So that's going to be much easier to light your backgrounds now that we've got this properly matte finish on the cards. The next thing, and probably the most interesting to a lot of you, is that we have much larger cards now. So these cards here, let's get rid of series 1 for a while. We now have A4 cards as well. So you'll notice that these are much larger than the A5 variants. They're the same colors as the A5 ones, but they are much larger to suit larger subjects. So you can easily do larger product photography on these cards and larger macro photography, and just generally have a lot more creativity and freedom of placing your subjects at different angles, different distances from the camera, so that you don't have to worry quite so much. Now these ones are a little bit more expensive, but they do give you that little bit more freedom than the A5 versions. Of course, if you're only shooting really small subjects, you only need really small backgrounds, but these ones are just slightly larger, and they still come in a nice little folder to keep them safe and tidy. So how do we use background gradient cards, and what do we use them for predominantly? Well, you will probably have noticed that we actually have a black background card here. So we'll start talking about this one. So shooting with these colored backgrounds, it's pretty obvious what they're for. You can simply choose a subject, say this nice little feather here, and place a colored background behind them, and you're going to get lots of lovely colors in the background of your images. There's a little bit more to it than that, but we'll discuss that in a moment. You might be wondering why we have this background card with just a pure black print on it. We call this one Blackout, and there's a reason that we've included this, and it's to do with our black background photographs. We talk an awful lot about achieving black backgrounds in your macro images on the channel here, because it's a very common technique that people want to achieve, and this black background is going to help us to achieve that. Now you'll notice that this doesn't look very black under this lighting, and that's because we need to light our background separately from our subject. So as you can see here, I've placed my feather down in front of my camera with a little bit of lighting and being held up by the macro subject holder just here, which is this interesting contraption with a few different arms with crocodile clips on the ends of those arms. But you can see here through the camera that we don't have that pure black background. Even though we've lit up the feather nice and bright in the foreground, there's just too much going on back in the rest of my room with windows and ambient light and all sorts. However, if we were to bring in our blackout card now and place it down behind the feather, you can see that that just gives it that extra little bit of darkness that it needs to block out all of that ambient light and stuff going on in the background of the image. That's what that black card is for, is just providing that extra little bit of black background that you need to tip your images over the edge to be pure black. So now let's do something a little bit more interesting with our cards and talk about how to add some color. As you can see, without any lighting in the background of our image, that color is all of a sudden looking quite dull, especially compared to the nice bright feather up front. So this means that we need to secure our card and add a little bit of extra lighting. So I've made a couple of changes to my feather setup just here. The first one is securing my background card in place, just using two of the clamps from the macro subject holder. It's just held nice and secure behind my feather. The other change is that I've added another white lighting arm. This white lighting arm just here is now dedicated to lighting the background. With a little bit of light on that background, it's just making those colors pop and bringing out the background as part of the image, rather than that sort of dull background afterthought that we had before. Now, it's super important when you're choosing lighting for a colourful background like this, or a colourful subject, that you choose something with a high CRI. Your colour rendering index on your average household lamp or lights is not going to be very good, which can leave these colours looking a little bit dull and washed out. However, with a dedicated photography lighting equipment like this, you'll have a nice high CRI, which will give you those nice, bright, colourful colours in the background of your images and pull out any colours needed on your subject as well. So having some nice lighting like this is going to be able to accentuate the colours both in the background and the subject, and give you that flexibility to light the background and the subject separately. So if you're getting into lighting your macro subjects and need a little bit of extra colour in your background, this is the way to do it, by lighting your background completely separately from your foreground, and then you'll be able to change the colours and the brightnesses of the backgrounds completely separately. You can see there how easy that is to change out that colour that's in the background of the image. Maybe let's try a purple. Let's see what that looks like now. That's got a nice light spot in the middle of it, so you can actually play around with that and your lighting to move the colours around on your background and see what works best for your particular composition. Yeah, blue and pink, blue and red looks really nice. So moving your lighting around isn't necessary. You can just set up your lights pointed in the right direction for your background, and then play around with those colours and see what you like most for your particular subject. Shooting with artificial light like this is not the only way to use your background cards. If you're not lighting your subject, your foreground, separately from your background, then these will balance out quite nicely with the ambient light that you're using. They should look quite similar to the brightness of your actual subject if you're just shooting it out in the daylight. So you could maybe take these around for some flower photography and just pop them into the backgrounds of your images and see what they look like. Particularly that black card will be really useful for cutting out any ambient light and highlights that might be hiding in the background of your images and just spoiling or distracting from your main subject. So I've talked a lot about placing these behind your subject to use them as, well, backgrounds. They are called background cards, but with the new A4 size of background cards, there's an opportunity to use these in a different way. We can actually use these as a shooting surface. So check out this coin shot. We've got a nice little coin sat down on one of our gradient cards with a few lighting arms strategically placed to light different parts of the image. We've actually got 3 white lighting arms here, similarly to before, and they are lighting different parts of the image just the same as before as well. So this furthest lighting arm is coming around the front and it's lighting up this front area down here, showing off a little bit of green and the blue and just lighting up this front rim of the coin. The middle lighting arm is doing most of the heavy lifting on the front edge of the coin just here, bringing out all of that detail, and then this lighting arm just here actually has a blue color filter on it to bring out the blue in the background card, but also carry some of that blue through onto this backside reflection as well. So there's lots of different things that you can do with some interesting lighting and some colored background cards. Of course, we have our feather, not the most colorful image without a colorful background, and the coin, again, there's not a lot of color on that subject until we start adding some color of our own, and you can see how you can get some really interesting, creative and eye-catching shots by adding a little bit of extra color just into the background or foreground of your images. So I'd like to know from you guys what you think to using colored background gradient cards like these in your images to give them a little bit of extra color and extra pop. Maybe you're a wedding photographer and you could match the theme of the wedding with some interesting colors on the odd ring shot, or maybe you're just going to pop them into your camera bag and carry them around for that odd occasion where you need a little bit of extra color, or using that blackout card to remove the background entirely. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Now, there's lots of people that use our Series 1 background cards already, and these represent a brand new opportunity for lots of extra creativity with all new colors, a new surface material, and of course, the brand new A4 sizes. So these are now available on our website. I will link to them up in the top right-hand corner and down in the description for you to go and check them out. For now, that is all that I've got time for. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.